Welcome back to the exam preparation video series for AZ-700, Designing and Implementing Microsoft Azure Networking Solutions. I am Karl de Winter, a Microsoft technical trainer, and this is the second episode out of a total of 5 episodes in this series. Now, in this episode, we'll focus on designing, implementing, and managing connectivity services. We will cover how to manage a site-to-site and point-to-site VPN connection. We will design, implement, and manage Azure ExpressRoute and Azure Virtual WAN architecture. Here is a list of all the different skills you may be tested on. These are sometimes referred to as may include, meaning they may or may not be on your exam. This list isn't exhaustive, and while we won't be covering every skill in this video, be sure you are all able to perform these skills before taking the exam. Now let's continue to look at the different skills you may be tested on. Like I previously mentioned, this list does not cover all possible elements, and while we won't be covering every skill in this video, be sure you are able to perform these skills before taking the exam. To provide high availability for your site-to-site VPN connections, consider active standby or active-active Azure VPN gateway, or do the combination of both. The gateway SKU affects the connection and throughput. Remember for the exam that connection limits are separate. For example, you can have 128 SSTP connections and also 250 IV2 connections on a VPN gateway 1 SKU. Now, resizing of VPN gateway SKUs is allowed within the generation. You are going to use site-to-site VPN connections to connect on-premises location with VPN termination devices inside Azure. Now, Azure VPN gateways can establish IPsec tunnels using their public IP address. VPN gateways will learn how to route to remote locations either via static or dynamic routing. When using dynamic routing, you need to manage BGP. Now, static routes are easier to configure. Remember for the exam that static routing does not support redundancy scenarios. Besides the routing-based connectivity, there is another way of configuring IPsec, which is called policy-based. But Microsoft's recommendation is to use the more modern routing-based approach in VPNs. To create and configure a VPN connection, you need a specific subnet called gateway subnet. Remember for the exam, the gateway subnet does not support network security groups and a minimum length of /27 is recommended. VPN type virtual network gateways can be deployed in active-passive mode with a single IP address assigned, or active-active, where 2 instances will be deployed and each with a public IP address. Now, the non-Azure side of the VPN tunnel is represented in Azure by a resource called Local Network Gateway, where information such as the public IP address of the on-premises VPN devices will be. The Local Network Gateway can be connected to one or more virtual network gateways. To create and configure an IPsec IP policy, you create a connection resource in Azure. Once you specify an IPsec or IP policy on a connection, make sure that the on-premises VPN device for the connection uses or accepts the exact policy combination. Otherwise, the site-to-site VPN tunnel will not establish. Know that the VPN gateway connections can fail for a variety of reasons. Although a network engineer will be able to troubleshoot many connectivity issues from experience, there are some guidelines to resolve the common issues. Remember these steps for the exam on how to implement Azure Extended Network. Another type of IPsec tunnel you can build with Azure VPN gateways is called point-to-site. Now, in this case, the tunnels are terminated on one side of an Azure Virtual Network Gateway and the other on a software client running on an operating system like Windows, Linux, or iOS. Understand that the different gateway SKUs affect the connections and the throughput. You will see this table, right, for your reference. Now, don't mistake the difference between these specific protocols. The Internet Key Exchange version 2, IKV2, is the first option for the tunneling protocol. OpenVPN protocol is an SSL TLS based VPN protocol and can be used to connect from Android, iOS, Windows, Linux, and Mac devices. The Secure Socket Tunneling Protocol, SSTP, is a TLS-based VPN protocol. Now, SSTP is only supported on Windows devices, and Azure supports all versions of Windows that have SSTP. Now, the IKV2 VPN can be used to connect from Mac devices. Think about macOS versions 10.11 and even above. Now, you should understand another area of designing a point-to-site VPN, and that is the different types of authentication. Now, the user must be authenticated before Azure accepts a point-to-site VPN connection. You can select from 3 authentication methods: Active Directory, domain server or radius server-based authentication, Azure certificate-based authentication, and native Entra ID authentication. Be aware that VPN clients dynamically receive an IP address from the range that you specify. Now, the minimum subnet mask is /29 for active-passive and /28 for active-active configuration. Now, refer to this screen to the solutions for these problems for a quick refresher and also see how to troubleshoot Azure point-to-site connection. Always on is the ability to maintain a VPN connection and include either of 2 types of tunnels: device tunnel and user tunnel. These are the key Azure requirements for Azure Network Adapter listed on the screen. Now, ExpressRoute will give you a more guaranteed bandwidth and performance between your on-premises network and the Microsoft Cloud. You can create a connection in 4 different ways. You have Cloud Exchange colocation, point-to-point Ethernet connection, any-to-any connection, and ExpressRoute Direct. Now, ExpressRoute circuits can have one of these different tiers. You have local, standard, and premium. Understand the differences in how you're automatically charged and how you connect your circuits to VNets. Now, ExpressRoute Direct provides customers the opportunity to connect directly into Microsoft's global network at peering locations strategically distributed across the world. Now, for disaster recovery, a site-to-site VPN can be used as a secure failover path for disaster recovery in ExpressRoute. Azure services like VMs or PaaS services deployed within a virtual network can be connected through the private peering. And with Microsoft peering, that is used when you want to have connectivity to Microsoft Online Services, for example, Office 365. Now, you can control which path Azure will take with different mechanisms. So first of all, ExpressRoute circuits have a weight comparable to the BGP weight attribute, so the higher wins. Now, ExpressRoute gateways will choose routes based on the longest prefix match. And for prefixes of the same length, the shorter autonomous system path, so the AS path, will win. Now, when you configure encryption over ExpressRoute, you have to remember 2 things. When sending traffic from on-premises to Azure, the Azure prefixes are advertised via both the ExpressRoute private peering, BGP, and the VPN BGP. And this will result in 2 network routes, 2 network paths. One over the IPsec protected path and one directly over ExpressRoute without IPsec protection. Now, to apply encryption to the communication, ensure that the Azure routes via on-premises VPN gateways are preferred over the direct ExpressRoute path. Now, the same requirement applies to traffic from Azure to on-premises networks, so make sure that the IPsec path is preferred over the direct ExpressRoute path, the one without IPsec. Virtual WAN will manage the VNets for you along with all the related tasks like deploying firewalls, gateways, or network virtual appliances, connecting the hub VNets to each other, and maintaining the required routing in these hub VNets. You have 2 types of SKUs, basic and standard one, and hub type. Remember the differences for the exam. Before you connect a cross-tenant VNet to a Virtual WAN hub, you must have the following configuration already set up: a Virtual WAN and Virtual Hub in the parent subscription, and a virtual network configured in a subscription in the remote tenant. Ensure that you have non-overlapping address spaces in a remote tenant. When you create a virtual hub in Virtual WAN, the minimum address space is /24 to create a hub. And there is no need to explicitly plan for subnet address space for the services in the virtual net, because Microsoft does this as part of the service itself. Know that you can select an appropriate scale unit for each gateway type on the side-to-side, point-to-side, and ExpressRoute tabs. Now, while creating a virtual hub, you need to define the throughput. On this screen, you will find these steps to deploy a gateway into a Virtual WAN hub. From the hub page, select VPN, so the side-to-side. That will open the VPN side-to-side page, and then select the checkbox next to the name of the site, and you can now connect the VPN sites and then configure the settings. The concept of Virtual WAN route tables is completely different from the route tables for standalone VNets. For the exam, you should know how Virtual Hub route tables operate in Virtual WAN. Now, these are some key components of Virtual Hub routing. Hub route table can contain one or more routes. Connections resources have a routing configuration, and each connection is then associated to one route table. Now, associating a connection to a route table allows the traffic to be sent to the destinations indicated as routes in the route table. Connections dynamically propagate routes to a route table. If the SD-WAN and third-party NVA that you use are supported by Virtual WAN, the simplicity that you will get with Virtual WAN will be great. The NVA is configured automatically as part of the deployment process in the Virtual Hub. And unlike Azure VPN gateway configurations, you do not need to create site-to-site connection resources. This is all managed via the NVA partner. To recap, in this episode, we discussed how to design, implement, and manage a site-to-site VPN connection, point-to-site VPN connection, Azure ExpressRoute, and Azure Virtual WAN architecture. Remember, this group accounts for 20 to 25% of the exam, so keep that in mind when preparing for the exam. Thank you for watching the AZ-700 Designing and Implementing Microsoft Azure Networking Solutions Exam Prep video series. We hope that this series helped you understand the skills that you are strong in and areas where you might need to revisit. Remember that understanding these concepts is crucial for your success, and be sure to leverage other exam prep resources such as study guide, practice assessments, and exam sandboxes.